community, like get them the best possible communication capacity for their, their internet access and their phones. And we certainly want that, but at the same time, the way the devices are set up, they're bulky, large. They could impinge on parking. They could impinge on ADA compliance for sidewalks and things of that nature as well. And again, that aesthetic piece, they don't fit the vernacular of our Main Street. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I think they showed them hooking them to the streetlights.
Yeah.
Stuff down Main Street, and we don't want that.
No, that's I agree completely. That's where, my question becomes is obviously we have the certain areas around town that we have more space that's, pushed behind and
Exactly.
things of that nature.
Yeah.
If we can direct them in that way, that would obviously be the ideal situation.
Right.
And just for clarification for everyone, the small cell technology is tied to the 5G, correct?
Not strictly.
Not strictly, but it will be as they try to broaden outside of the major cities.
Okay. I thought that's what kind of sparked it.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So can we vote on the ordinance now and then go to policy? You want to go to policy first?
I only had this as a discussion, not knowing, since it was so broad and a lot of information, if the board wanted to take it and review it until April. So we can't really take a vote on it.
Okay, that's fine.
But I'll
you
certainly
want-
bring it back in April for a vote.
Want to go through the policy now?
Sure. So this policy pretty much, and again, this is what the attorney sent us, but MML had also sent us. We're looking at aesthetic standards. So not only do you want an ordinance that kind of outlines what the procedure is if you want to bring a small wireless facility to town, what some of the basic guidelines are, but you also have to have your aesthetic standards so that you don't have it attached to your street light or smack dab in the middle of your main street. So there were several municipalities that have gone above and beyond with establishing their aesthetic standards. And in talking to MML and the town attorney, the one that we felt that most fit the town of Emmitsburg was this one is patterned after the city of Rockville. And so we pretty much took what they had already done as far as the aesthetics and put it into a policy of our own. And the policy addresses height standards. As we said in the ordinance, they may not be mounted on structures greater than 50 feet in height. That includes your antenna. They may not be mounted on structures more than 10% taller than other adjacent structures. And they may not be mounted on existing structures which cause the structure to extend in a height more than 50 feet or more than 10% above pre-existing height. And then it goes on to address the antenna and other small wireless equipment size standards. Each antenna, can be no greater than 3 cubic feet in volume. Installation, placement, and design standards. The wireless facilities must not project over the roadway, pedestrian path, or sidewalk unless approved by the Director of Public Works. New poles that support small wireless facilities must maintain minimum 3-foot horizontal clearance. And then from existing sidewalks and roadways, and a minimum of 5 from the edges of driveway aprons, handicap ramps, etc. Must be located a minimum of 15 feet above grade. Any exterior attachments to structures must be a minimum of 8 feet above grade. Replacement of poles and fixtures must be the same height as the pole and fixtures being replaced. So then it outlines a lot of the rules and where these things can be placed or cannot be placed. I can go over them if you would like. And then on page 64, it goes over the conditions. The applicant must be a member of Miss Utility and comply with state law regarding all the marking of utilities. Small wireless facilities located in public right-of-way must not cause a safety hazard. Small wireless facility must be removed from public right-of-way within 90 days of the final right-of-way access attachment payment to the town. And then it goes over the submittal requirements. Number 2 goes over the FCC. Applicant must provide certified analysis showing that the proposed facility satisfies the FCC radio frequency exposure. Utility permit application and permit fees, and must comply to the town code. And that's just a highlight of the different standards that are required. And the idea is to put it out there, make it public so they know before they even come to town what they need to do. And we were recently already approached by one while we were developing this policy,
By one.
wireless company.
Is there any other questions for staff on the policy?
If, as you're reading this, if there's something that you see, certainly please email me and I can follow up with it so that when we bring it back in April, we can proceed.
Mr. Sweeney?
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thank you, sir. I would ask staff give consideration, if this has not happened before, to please consider contacting the city of Rockville and their staff to see, has this been tested?
Yeah, tested. We've already talked to them, but
Oh, very
I
good.
haven't asked
Great.
them if it's been tested.
Okay,
If
terrific.
they've had success with it.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 6, fiscal year 2019 budget transfers for the from the capital fund. Kathy?
Yes. So as most of you are familiar, after the audit, we typically, after the audit of the general fund, if there's monies left over out of the general fund that weren't expended during the fiscal year, so this fiscal year, we're talking about fiscal year 19, the audit that was just presented by Michelle. So remaining funds in the general fund are transferred to your capital projects fund, which is any larger project that normally could be part of your general fund. And it's, this year, there was a remainder, upon the completion of FY19, we had additional revenues over expenses in the amount of $218,336. These additional funds then get transferred to the capital projects fund for related projects. So staff along with the mayor are proposing, and I'll go down, give you some basic information under there. $13,377 moved to Fund 2 in Department 10, and that would be the sound system for the meeting room. As you know, the last several meetings, we've had very difficult times with the sound system. $87,769 moved to Fund 2, Department 12, Planning for Stormwater Management. $75,000 of that will go to the stormwater restoration projects that Zach discussed at the last town meeting. $6,500 of that would go to the Forestry Stand 5 for invasive species control. Buildings, Fund 2, Building 102, 300A South Seton. We'd like to add $5,000 to that for improvements to the front lobby area for additional security purposes. As we've had discussions with the county and talked to a lot of other municipalities, they have upgraded their security of their buildings in light of global events. It's proposed by the county to make the doorway into the office, not the front into the, still walk in the main door, make that a buzzard door and still conduct business through the window, and then closing off and putting a wall with a door for access back to the office so that it is all secured now. The county will complete that work. Department 15 Buildings 10422 East Main Street, a total of $16,200. $5,550 of that is for upgrades for computer and radio antenna towers so that we can adequately watch the cameras that are located in town, throughout town, the security system. And then $10,650 of that is to replace the retaining wall that is falling down behind 22 East Main Street. It's become very hazardous. Buildings, Fund 2, Buildings 108, 140 South Seton is $9,700. That was for mold remediation. Fund 2, Department 22, Other Public Safety for a total of $30,800. $19,200 of that is for a camera and a light pole in the area of the community park where between like the bandstand and the new playground. And then $11,600 of that is for lighting at the pool parking lot. Fund 230 streets, 612 signs, $16,287. That was just to bring the line item to zero. We were over, that line item was over. The storm drain inlets, that money, the $12,769 is being moved to stormwater management because all the storm drain inlet work is now being done through planning and zoning. Department 30, Fund 2, Department 30, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and roads, we're moving $11,474. That money will go towards repairing and replacing the sidewalk along a portion of West Lincoln Avenue. Where am I at? Fund 260, parks, 352, parks and rec equipment upgrade. 17,298 is to bring the balance to zero, and then an additional $8,850 to resurface the tennis courts. They were originally done in 2013 with a grant, and they're in very bad condition. There's a bunch of kids playing basketball out there today, and their ball was kind of going a little crazy as it hit some cracks. Fund 2, Department 60, parks, CIP Town Reserve Funds grant match. That's just being moved to to line item 352. And then the final item is Fund 2, Parks, 999 General, $11,600. That is for the tree removal around the walking path that was discussed several months ago. There are a lot of diseased and dying and hazardous trees along the walking path. I do know the goal of the Arbor Day is to plant more trees in several areas along the walking path. So that brings the total to $218,336.
Any questions with town staff for the transfers?
Just one. The last comment
Mr. Ritz?
regarding the trees. I'm just trying to jog my memory. The disc golf folks that are putting in the course, weren't they taking care of some of the trees?
Back in the disc golf, this isn't, this is along the walking path. Their golf course is or their golf area is further back there. And they have proposed to plant a few more trees outside that area. So it's in a partnership, but these trees that are falling down, they have to go.
Well, okay.
We've already had them marked. I forget which company did it. As well as, and I forget the lady's name that lives in Southgate. There were some trees that are going to be planted along that area as well. She was in here.
And Mr. Slaughter came in a while ago and proposed this notion of like an arboretum, but he also made the comment that there were trees that appeared imminent to
Yes.
fall
Right.
onto the path, so.
I do remember that.
Okay.
That was
But you're
before-
correct, the disc golf,
that
they
was
are going to
before
plant
disc
some
golf,
trees
though.
further back along as their course goes further back into the park. But these are just more along that walking path.
Okay. So beyond the walking path.
Correct, yes.
The swamp. All right.
Hydrophilic soil.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Yes, sir. Just a quick one. Regarding street signage, have we done a sign audit recently of town signs for their reflectivity? I knew that we replaced a stop sign at Creamery Road that was almost invisible in the dark. Is there value to kind of do a little tour of town and identify signs that are in need of some love replacement or new decals, perhaps?
I do know the Director of Public Works, he has a schedule to replace
Terrific, okay.
pretty much everything in town. I'm
Okay.
sure signs are on his schedule, but I'll ask him.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Not for myself, no, sir.
The transfers, no, good.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the transfers as presented.
I propose a motion to accept the transfers for fiscal year 2019 budget, transfers to the capital fund.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Burns. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Davis. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty, agenda item number 7, approval of the pool house mural for consideration. Is that Zach?
Sure. Yep. So I've been working with the Frederick County Arts Council for many months now, and we have partnered to potentially put a new mural on all 4 sides of our pool house. If approved tonight, this will be done in time for our grand opening, reopening with the interior renovations and then also exterior renovations. So the Frederick County Arts Council has submitted a request for qualifications. We received many qualifications, and we all went over it and picked 3 different proposals, and then we asked those 3 to submit actual designs. And the Frederick County Arts Council, the mayor, Kathy, and myself, and town staff also have recommended this one that we show on the screen now. Here's the front of the building, the side of the building where the existing sign is. Here's where the concession stand is. And here's the rear of the building. I also took this to the sustainable board, local board, and it was approved by a 5-0 vote. They absolutely love the design. They think it's going to fit well in our community. And this will be paid for 100% by community legacy funds, so no tax dollars will be used on this project. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Sweeney, may I?
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Okay. I don't want to be a stick in the mud, but of course we need a picture of the mayor and some scuba gear up there. But besides that.
He's near the shark.
Yeah, ouch. Wow, look at you.
He's hiding.
Okay. So what's the longevity of the paint? Like when we paint, we know that in time it needs to be replaced.
Sure. So since we partnered with the Arts Council, they have it's not really a bond, but they have an agreement with the artist for so many years. I'll have to get that information for you. It is painted with a special paint on the exterior, which the Arts Council actually comes out and takes test samples.
Okay.
So they ensure it is high quality. So if someone would come around and try to spray paint something, it would fall right off.
Okay.
And also our public works director is going to be adding some parking stops at the front to ensure that no one would run into and scrape the paint.
Okay.
Because it is a significant project. It's valued at $35,000 to $40,000.
But do we have a lifespan for it? Like at some point in time, it's not going to look awesome, and it's going to mean,
I'll have to find that out for you.
Thank you. I mean, that's really my primary concern.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
It's many years. I do know that.
Any other questions at this time? Hearing none, I need a motion to accept the pool house mural.
I propose the motion for the approval of the pool house mural.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Burns. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Davis. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion carries 5-0.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Alrighty, we're on item number 8.
Sure. So this is to proceed with the proposed Rudders project. Mr. Cece, Rudders engineer, and Mr. Bieber is here from Rudders to answer any questions. Basically, this document, the board needs to authorize the mayor to sign the document attached to the packet. It's the Department of Environmental Sewage construction permit application for the proposed sewage pump station to be located at 10201 Taneytown Pike for consideration. I also put some notes there. So by approval of this document, the town acknowledges that the proposed sewer pump station to be located on the Rudders property will be turned over to the town's ownership, operation, and maintenance after mayor and board approval of a public works agreement and full completion of construction. The sewer pump station will be built and paid for solely by the developer. The pump's capacity is designed to serve up to 500 single-family homes, 50 acres of commercial development, including retail, restaurants, and one convenience store. So basically, it's not just going to serve one business. It'll be serve basically almost the entire east side of US 15. The Public Works Agreement will be brought to the mayor and board for approval at a later date. Our attorneys are working out the details right now. And like I said, Joe Cece is here to answer questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the proposal?
Yes, sir, Mr. Sweeney.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Again, I'll defer to, or rather refer to, my position as treasurer. One of the items I find myself signing checks for, and the mayor might recognize this, is the replacement and maintenance needs of water pump infrastructure, the actual pumps themselves. So frequently there will be checks for example, pump bearings, pump motors, pump housing, pump-related items. So my hope is the board might consider at the time of accepting the turnover of ownership of the pump house from the Rudders entity to the town, to the municipality, that we look for, prior to accepting it, the maintenance piece, so we don't accept things that are imminently in need of maintenance. Does that make sense?
It should be brand new, and it'll be brand new and work at full
Yeah,
capacity.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, but what I'm saying is, in the event there's some delay in the process, and again, it won't be operating as far as I know, because I don't know that we're going to have much, we have very few, water serviced properties over there. So I would imagine it should be fine, but if there's some delay in the turnover, my concern would be, machinery not being, up to snuff, as it were. So I would like that to be considered as part of the language for the turnover.
Well, there'll be warranties
Yeah,
that
there'll
are
be warranties on
guaranteed in the agreement, and that's what the attorneys are working out. And then you'll have substantial completion and then full completion, but then there'll be warranties that are conveyed as well before the town will take it over. I do understand what you're
But
saying.
you kind of like
do.
the duration of the machinery, and it's not it's not against Rudders themselves. It's just the nature of the machinery. One of the things I found myself very surprised by was how frequently we're spending money for the maintenance of pumps and pump related mechanisms, and it's just the nature of they're constantly burning, and I don't want to see us, behind the 8 ball on that, where we take possession of it and now we have to refit it. So,
The reason why we're having a lot of problems with the Creamery Road one, because it needs replaced. the
sure,
whole
no,
thing.
and I'm with you. I
And
understand
it
that
gets
too.
flooded a lot too. That's why it backs up.
But I'm actually talking more, Mr. Sweeney, about the virtually brand new wastewater treatment plant, where there's a steady flow of items that just need to be replaced just by virtue of their being used constantly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes, Mr.
could the
Rose.
counter argument be made, though, that the addition of this piece that can then serve up to 500 single-family homes and 50 acres of commercial should alleviate some of the strain on many of the other pumps and issues that we're having? So the older items that we do have that have a lot of strain on them are going to be subsidized by something of this nature?
Sure. So each time someone taps into our system on the east side of 15, we will receive our tap revenue, which will help pay for maintenance.
Right, but I'm saying if this will only serve the east side of 15, it won't help alleviate any of the strain on the system?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the load, if I understand your question, the load use would be on that side of 15, so it's
That's what I was trying to figure out as
sort
well.
of like
'cause-
undiscovered territory.
But it still feeds, and part of the problem that we're seeing is it will still feed your new wastewater treatment plant. A lot of the problems that we have at the wastewater treatment plant right now are fueled by the problems that we have at the pump station, because our pump station can't handle the flows that we have, so we're still sending significantly higher flows to the wastewater treatment plant. So in the advent of a new pump station, which we're working on, and then this is a brand new one, that they will both operate much more efficiently. Hopefully, the wear and tear on their current system will be less impactful. You're still going to have the wear and tear.
Sure.
It's been in service now. June will be the 5th year. You still have the wear and tear. A lot of the pumps you're seeing are from the pump station because that's 45 years old. Pumps at the water treatment plant because that's old as well. And then the new plant just, yeah.
Okay.
But you feel that we're covered with Commissioner O'Donnell's concerns?
Well, we're going to make sure of it, and that was something that I had talked to Zach and I talked to Leslie about. We want to make sure that when we take this over, that, you know, any warranties are conveyed to the town, that the pump station itself, you know, passes all the testing, all the requirements from MDE or whoever, and so that when we take it over, we do have exactly what we want.
And we will be hiring a separate attorney. Mr. Cece's actually the town's attorney. However, there's a conflict, engineer. However, there's a conflict of interest. So we have hired a separate engineering firm, which will be there every step of the way along the construction process. So he'll bring the engineering firm will provide me weekly updates during the construction phase, and anytime it will be stopped if it's not done correctly.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
No, I'm good. I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Keep this
All
one
right.
up long enough.
Okay, I need a motion made to accept the Maryland Department of Environmental.
Well, you're basically authorizing the mayor to sign the permit, the construction permit application.
Okay. Need a motion for the mayor to sign the application for the permit.
Make a motion for the mayor to sign the attached Maryland Department of Environment's sewer construction permit application.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Burns. There a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Davis. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Sweetie?
Yes, Mr. O'Donnell.
Brian, we did skip over the further discussion item, and I just
Well,
want to
we had
say.
discussion beforehand, that's why I didn't mention, well, we were talking about. it
I
all the
understand.
time.
But one thing I do want to throw in is I do want to welcome Rudders to our community. The other side of it is aesthetically, I'm still concerned about the look of the gas station. I'm hoping it will shine and be well maintained. As always, I'm looking for, you know, the timber, the brick, the stone, and I know that didn't make the cut. But perhaps when a renovation occurs at the site, we would love to see something that is aesthetically aligned with the vernacular of the town's architecture. It's in Sheets, your competitor up the road. It's down the road with your competitors in Royal Farm, and I know you're coming south of the Mason-Dixon, and we would love to see that here. We're tremendously proud of our historic nature and aesthetics, and I would hate for someone to perceive us adversely from something that isn't necessarily aligned with the look of the town. So I know they're completely disconnected, but I'm just having my last out loud whine about the issue. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I know it's totally unrelated to what we're doing tonight. Completely.
Moving on to the next agenda item.
I pulled a Joe. Well, Joe just told me I pulled a Joe. Well, there it is.
Agenda item 9.
One thing that you're concerned about, the wear and tear on the pump station and timing of that, is that,
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
so one of the,
Can you come up here and give your name?
Tim Bieber with Rodders. One of the things that'll happen is there will be a surety placed on the construction of this system. So it's in our best interest to get it turned over to you guys as quickly as possible so that we can relieve ourselves of that financial surety, so.
Terrific. And understood. Thank you, sir.
When do you think you were going to break ground?
Talk to Joe. Not soon enough.
Maybe they'll build the pump house in brick and
So certainly,
Yeah.
with getting the signature from the mayor on the MDE application, it's got to go through their review and approval. We're still working with SHA to resolve their comments that are outstanding on the project, and it'll be as soon as we can get all the necessary approvals.
Thank you. Alrighty, I think that's the no, we had agenda number 9, new water and sewer operator employee.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it over to our town manager. We do have a hire.
Kathy.
Yes, I'm just going through my notes. So as I previously mentioned, Jacob Fisher will be, his last day will be March 6th. He had been with the town as a water and sewer operator for 6 years. He is moving on. So we had contacted Amanda, who is our HR consultant, to hire at least one water and sewer operator. We advertised on the town website, the Frederick County Workforce Services, Maryland Workforce Exchange, Indeed, APWA, AWWA, those are all trade organizations, and MML. Indeed generated the most candidates. We received a total of 39 candidates. Wow. 7 were selected for interviews, and 4 were actually interviewed. There was 1 no-show, and 2 did not respond. So out of those interviews, myself, the mayor, Mr. Click, and Mr. Fiscal, and as well as Ms. Hadaway, sat in on the interviews. We selected, or we're recommending the hire of Ryan Keeney. He resides in Carroll Valley. He worked for Lehigh Cement Company for 16 years. He has extensive experience with machinery. He had 2 favorable references stating they would rehire him. He was intelligent on mechanical parts of the job, very good at troubleshooting and working through a problem. We would recommend his hiring at a grade 4, step 9, which is at $17.88 an hour. This basically makes no change to the budget. The budget will stay the same through the fiscal year, depending on what his health insurance rates, or what he would have on health insurance. His rate would be contingent on, he does not have any of his licenses. Nobody we interviewed had their water and sewer licenses that the town needed. So there would be pay increases once those licenses were to be obtained. He's required to obtain them within 18 months. Mr. Fiscal, Mr. Click, who would be working with him the most, think that he'll be a very good fit for their group. Our intent was to bring you hopefully 2 candidates. Unfortunately, we were not able to select 2 out of the group. With the board's permission going forward with the next fiscal year, we would like to put an additional operator into the budget and then re-advertise in late summer, early fall. So again, I got a little off track. We'd like to recommend the hiring of Ryan Keeney for a water and waste or sewer operator at a grade 4, step 9 at $17.88 an hour.
Any questions for staff?
I just like the idea that he's been at the same place for 16 years, so that tells you that he's not a mover arounder. So it's,
Nice, yeah.
How old is he?
Oh, no.
Oh,
Withdraw the question.
I didn't know if he
would
was-
suggest, sir. Withdraw the
you're
question.
pushing a line tonight. aren't you?
suggest-
After Miss Utility, now you're
oh,
getting ready to build a wall right here.
A quick question related to the 18th month window.
March 16th would be his start date.
Okay.
I left that out.
So at 18 months, would that individual be terminated if they had not met the licensing requirements, or do we?
Well, we worked with a previous employee who had difficulties obtaining their license, so we would work with them as long as they're making progress.
So the employee will recognize the investment from the.
Correct. And his statement was, this is somewhere he wants to retire. So he has, I think that he will do just fine.
Terrific. That's encouraging. Thank you.
any other questions?
Need a motion or just a
I do.
head nod?
Need a motion to accept a new water and
Ryan-
sewer operator
Ryan
employee?
Keeney.
I'll make a motion to accept Brian Keeney as our new water and sewer operator.
Second?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Ritz, second by Commissioner O'Donnell. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we're up to setting the agenda for meeting for April the 6th.
Okay. I have several items. I'll start with the consent agenda. I have 3 appointments or reappointments to the Board of Appeals for consideration. Ronald Lynn, Wayne Slaughter as an alternate, and Patrick Joy as an alternate. I have 3 items for admin business. The first one being the proclamation making April 2020 Child Abuse Awareness Month for consideration. Proclamation making May 2nd, 2020 Green Fest in honor of the 50th anniversary of Earth Day for consideration. Third one, the Lions Club request for a location in the park for a storage shed for consideration. And then agenda items. First one would be the approval of engineering firm for the water clarifier project for consideration. Approval of ordinance 20-03 small cell tower for consideration. Approval of policy 20-02 small wireless facility standards for consideration. 4, approval of policy 20-03 updated review fees policy for consideration. 5 would be the community development block grant. Actually, don't put that one number 5. Move these up. That'll be last. Number 5 will be approval of resolution 20-03R, community development block grant submittal authorization for consideration. That's be last? Okay. Bear with me. We'll go back to that one. Number 5 will be the community development block grant public hearing for the purpose of seeking public input on local community development, economic development, housing needs, proposed CBDG activity, and that's the replacing of 117 curb ramps and other community needs as needed. It's a long agenda item, but that's what they require that we post. And then we would have the approval of resolution 20-03R, community development block grant submittal authorization for consideration.
Jeez.
And I have one last item, and then it'll be approval of ordinance 20-04, collection of amendment of the collection of charges for consideration, and that's simply, we put a drop box outside the building to collect water bills, keys, and such. We need to add that location to the code.
Is that different than 22 West Main Street?
We're going to maintain that one also. Yeah.
That's great. Good, good, good.
Sweating now.
Anybody have anything else they want to add to this?
No, sir.
No. I need for you to go through these some more because I
And
missed
I
a
need
couple.
to, okay. April, we always have the second meeting in April just to present
The
the
budget.
initial fiscal year 2021 budget. It's a short meeting. We propose that meeting to be April 13th. It's a Monday at 7:30.
What was that for again? I'm sorry.
The initial presentation of fiscal year 2021 budget.
Day after Easter?
Is that the day after Easter?
Yes.
Okay. Is there another date? I can,
I'm fine with
I'm-
that. I just don't
I'm
know.
fine.
Some people might be out of town with
Right.
spring breaks and things of that nature. I know,
I'm fine.
yeah.
so basically all that is the initial presentation. Cole will be here. He will hand out the budget. We'll kind of highlight a few areas of it, ask for any questions, and then we'll do the full-blown budget at the first meeting in May.
Alrighty. Now let's go through this administrative.
Okay?
Are you going to add something on?
I'd like to.
Okay,
if
for
possible.
consent or administrative?
Be administrative.
Okay.
It's something I've been putting off for a couple months. We talked about it last month. Just a presentation, possibly get the ball rolling on what we can do as town government regarding the traffic pattern of the square.
What do you mean, changing the light to narrow?
Well, initially it was supposed to be that way, and then it got taken away. And I find it more not as a aggravation and nuisance, but more as a safety issue, with cars whipping around the way they do. it was supposed to be alternating, turning, heading westbound and eastbound. And then it was supposed to be like an all pedestrian.
Sort
That's
of
how
like
it was
a-
presented to
Sort of
us.
like a four-way stop, and they would come in, they would go individually.
Almost. You know, like north and south, they all have their turn, but then east and west as well, because you still have cars going around illegally. Gets a little dicey at times. I mean, people might not agree with me, but I've heard a lot of residents state their concern, and I've witnessed it. And
So and I know we've had discussion, I told you this, but I've had discussions with State Highway about that before as well. And I know the discussions I've had, I've been shot down. The mayor's had discussions, and we both have been shot down. So
I'd like to try again.
Well, no, and I'm not saying don't try again, because it's been and I agree, it's miserable at times, and it is dangerous.
Yeah, they are going around.
What is the reasoning?
We've done an official letter that it would cause more traffic backup by having east go at one time and west go at one time, that you'd see significant backups in either direction by not letting. That was just the reasoning that I was given. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's the reason that I was given. So I think another letter, we could do a discussion at that meeting and draft another letter on behalf of the board.
Okay. I mean, it's going to be heavy traffic anyway. You know, 90% of the cars that come through at night don't reside here in town anyway. They don't reside in this state. It's going to be backed up regardless. But thank you. I'd like to consider that. Another thing I like to consider, not for this next meeting, but just to put a bug in everyone's ear. We talked about it tonight with the census and the post office. I'd like to do something. You know, a lot of what we vote on here and what we discuss is trickled down from federal level and from state level, and we have to adopt it. I know that the post office in town is federal government. It's the post office. They have their own rules. But I think if we can, as a town, come forward and say, hey, you know, why can't we have mail delivery in our town? People that live in town have to have a post office box. Sometimes you buy something online, it can't be delivered. And I'm not talking about someone's Christmas or birthday presents. I'm talking about something very important like medication. We have a lot of elderly individuals in town. Maybe they can't get their mail.
But you can get, they don't
Oh.
require you to have it.
Oh, you have to have a post office box. And God forbid, if somebody mails you something not to your post office box, our post office will send it right back to the person you got it from.
You see, the only reason why my next door neighbor and them who lives next door to me, they put mailboxes out. So they get their mail delivered.
Yes,
to
Cliff, everything after Creekside down, you can have a mailbox.
Oh, okay, so I didn't know Creekside
Yep,
up.
that's the boundary line right there,
Okay.
at least on North
It
Seaton.
also has something to do with being able to pull
Pull
off
off, yeah.
and put it in. And how long do you think a mailbox would last in front of my house?
It wasn't
I'd love to have one on the house. I wouldn't care if I ever went in that post office again.
Thurman's
I
post
would
office.
love to have it
They're
delivered.
in my house,
They're
mail
my
walkers.
They welcome.
Just saying, that's an idea, but I digress. I think we have a very full schedule, next agenda, but I'd like to discuss that in the future. But if we can get that square traffic pattern, at least discuss that.
To follow up with Commissioner Ritz, State Highway designed the square, correct? They're the ones that set the distance for the crosswalks out and everything of that nature.
Right.
And they refuse to do anything that would possibly shorten that to prevent the trucks, cars, and everybody else going around. I mean, they made it just wide enough.
Well, I'm sure there's guidelines that made them, that they were required to
Okay.
do.
Uniform code.
But I don't know.
I hate to tell you though, on a Friday night, if people didn't break the law and go around,
They'd be backed up
we would
forever.
have traffic backed up to Harney Road. I've sat through 7 lights on a Friday night because I wasn't thinking, and I got in and I went, what'd I do this for? So it would even be worse.
See if
No,
it
I
could
don't.
be worse.
I don't
Yeah.
disagree. But if you spend any amount of time out there on the square,
Oh, I
like,
understand.
with anybody
Oh, I do.
crossing, you have people that walk to the edge there that oh, I'm safe, and then you have the trucks that come flying around,
Oh, I know.
4 or 5 car deeps, and that sooner or later someone, knock on wood, doesn't get hit, but it's going to be close calls.
I understand. And I think that's why this traffic pattern would be more important
Yeah.
to get moving, because
They did one thing for the crossing. So we used to have like diving boards out there that were flat and almost on level with the street, and that, so they raised the curves. They did move things around a little bit, but this is the same traffic problem we've had here for many, many years. And they did signalization. They changed. They let North Seaton go first, and then they let South Seaton move, so people on the north, coming down from the north, going across, didn't have to wait for the long turns in the evening going home. So it's.
Are they going to argue for the bypass again then if we start?
Where's that?
Are they going to argue for the bypass again if we start barking up their tree?
Well,
Someone might,
Somebody might, yeah.
not me, somebody. Yeah.
Oh, I think it should go right through.
Can't hurt to try.
Yep.
Tim.
Alrighty. Well, administrative, he wants that on there. What else do we have for
So you
administrative?
have you have consent agendas, the 3 appointments to the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Administrative business, you have the 2 proclamation, the Lions Club, and then discussion related to the traffic pattern at the square. And the agenda, then you have the engineering firm for the water clarifier project, the ordinance for the small cell tower, policy for the small wireless facility standards, policy for the review fees, the
Public hearing.
public hearing for the community development block grant, resolution 2003R, community development block grant submittal authorization for consideration, and then the final one would be the ordinance for the collection of charges related to the drop box.
20-04.
And then, if you want to approve that, but then we'd like to set the April 13th, if everybody's amenable to that date, for the initial presentation of fiscal year 2021 budget.
You just need consent for all this, or we need approval? A motion?
Consent's fine.
Everybody's okay with everything as set?
Yes, sir.
According, and also the April 13th? 7:30 for the the budget presentation?
Yes, sir.
I can tell you, I will not be available for April 13th, but I don't want it to hold up for everyone else. If everything would just, is the presentation would
It's
be
just
emailed?
presentation of the book.
Yeah, so what he'll do is he'll put the entire initial budget on your desk.
I could pick it up before that.
If there's any other information, it'll be on the desk as well. And all we always ask is if you've got additional information or requests, to email me or Cole so we can work on it ahead of time.
I'm good to go for May, though.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Alrighty, everybody okay with everything?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, it's set. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
1 minute. We do have the settlement of 140 South Seaton this week, just to give you an update on that. So, thank you.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:31.
Second.
Whoa.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Burns, second by Commissioner O'Donnell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Thank you for coming to the meeting.